from the student meetings so that if you want to see all the things that we've gone over in more detail with the students, that you can also do that. So I'll go through everything that I have in the slideshow and then take time at the end for questions. So what I told students in our meetings today was, as I'm going through, just write down like whatever the title on the slide is, write that word down if you have more questions. So then at the end, you can say, I had a question about this slide, and I can go back and I can answer it more thoroughly for you guys. So here are on this page, these are all the things that when Mr. Perez and Mrs. Salazar and I, when we talked before we went to break, we said, what are the things that parents have questions about and the things that we want to make sure we can communicate? And this is our list. It's by no means everything, but here's what we're going to try to cover, okay? We want you to know where to find links. Where do you find codes, tech help, so that you're not sitting there going, I'm sure it's out there, but I don't know where to go. We want to talk about communication. We talk a lot with our students about that, but also making sure that we're all on the same page, and that you know how you can communicate with us and how we will communicate with you. Um, the fact that you need internet to do online school. And I say reliable internet, but I say that and you understand. I mean, mine works fine most of the time, but it just kicked me off. So reliable doesn't mean perfect. And especially living in the Valley, the word reliable takes on a whole new meaning. But being able to most of the time get on for the Zoom classes and for their schoolwork. And if you're still having trouble getting yourself connected to internet, please reach out to us, because there are resources that the school district has to support families who are having a hard time either getting internet connection or getting a reliable internet connection. So if you're having trouble, that's why we included this in here, so that you know you're not alone. We're going to talk about structure. The buzzwords that the whole country has are synchronous and asynchronous, which just means live and not live. So we're going to talk about what's required. What do the students have to be there for? How are we taking attendance? How can you help them succeed? We're going to talk about the expectations for Fridays being a half day. Student supports. We have read plans. There's IEP plans. There's ALPs and NLPs and all kinds of plans, right? So what does that mean for your student as an online school student? And nibbles, benchmarking, progress monitoring, assessments, all these words that we know what they mean as teachers, but sometimes we forget that as parents, if I say dibbles, you might be like, I don't know what that is. Oh, reading one-on-one. But we want to talk to you about what some of those things are and why we do them. And I'm going to talk a little bit about something that has just been, I mean, you see memes about it all over the internet, and it's just this, wow, there was stuff that was happening at school with teachers and with students, and now you're stuck with them all day. I shouldn't say stuck with them because we love them, right? But there is a shared responsibility that now you have a lot more of that than you did before. You don't there's a lot that's going on in our students' lives, and there's a lot that you're seeing at home that teachers are starting to realize, oh, you know what? I normally would be like helping with this, and now they're not at school. They're not coming to my classroom. And what does that look like? And how can we help each other? We're going to just touch on the student, family, and school contracts, and this is what's on the list. A couple of other things that might be in there. So if you are looking at that and there's something that you have a question about, write it down. And if I don't get to it by the end of the presentation, please. So links and codes. Now, I told you that this presentation will be shared, so these links you'll be able to access them. Students know that they should multiple times a day check their Gmail and get on Google Classroom. we use Google Classroom to really share a lot with our students, but we also have places on Google Classroom that we post links. So your student might already know where to find certain links that they need to get to just by going to Google Classroom. So if you're trying to get to something where you're like, don't you use this every day? I would check Google Classroom first because they probably do use it every day and it probably is there. But for you, I included the link for the Almost Online School Facebook page, which you might not know exists. But if you follow our Facebook page, we try to make sure we have all the updates there for when we have our accountability committee meetings. If you want to participate in that, there's links for all of the ages, all of the grades. So we're trying to make sure that we have all the communication for everybody, but understanding that maybe not everyone is on Remind. Facebook, the Facebook page would be a place where you could still get that important information, links, and plans for things. We do have a website from the district site, and we've worked on making it better. For a while, it was more or less a blank page, but it does have some helpful information now. So if you check the Alamos Online School page, our principal, Brenda Martini, she will post each month a like a newsletter. Might be different updates. I'm sorry, it's taking a long time to load here. There we go. So on just the main page for our Alamos Online School, you'll see it has like a feed from our Facebook. It has different newsletters and some announcements and some upcoming dates. But if you come up here to learn more and just hover over it, then you can go to these pages: elementary, secondary, students, and parents. So elementary has some information just about the different things that we're doing at the elementary level. Students and parents, I worked on this over break. I don't remember what I put on there, but I'm working on getting a lot of the helpful links in one place here. So, yep. So I've got the district calendars because we do go by those. The family school contract. I included the folder for everything this week, which has not only the schedules, but it also has the slides. So you could go and get the slideshows from all of the students. And then once we've recorded all their meetings, we can put a folder with those as well. So it's a work in progress, but it is there. And then my unofficial sites I included here. And this is a Google site that I made that's more for just a bunch of extra resources: timers with music, timers without music, some breaks. So if you're struggling to help your students take reasonable breaks, and if you're like, hey, a 5-minute break is only 5 minutes, well, here's some 5-minute breaks with music. Here are some slight long breaks, but they're not too long and they give them something to do. So it's a brain break. So just some stuff that this is the kind of thing that we as teachers use in the classroom to give our students a quick break to get some moving before they get back on with their schoolwork. So here are a few ideas in one place for you, realizing, well, I'm not in the classroom doing this with the students anymore, but it doesn't mean that it's something, not something they would still enjoy. Also on this page, I have a page up here called Reading Supports. Sorry, I still have the Thanksgiving message. So reading supports, I tried to put just a whole bunch of different tips and sites, passages and games and things, because I've had a lot of parents ask, what can I do to help my child at home? So we've got phonogram videos that go over the sounds, a couple of different test practice sites. If you're looking for a way that your student can search the internet, like to research, but safely, this right here has a variety of kid-friendly search sites So Kid Rex is great. National Geographic Kids, Kids Search. You still have to teach them to be responsible and to look and figure out which ones are ads, but those are some really good student friendly search sites. If they want to look up tigers, they can look up tigers. And then I also put on here the Tech Help Hotline. Now, between you and me, and on the internet who watches this later, here's why I say option 3. If you choose option 1, it's going to come to me. Now, I can be helpful with certain things. I can, if you're locked out of Buzz, I can help you get unlocked from Buzz. If your question is about logging into something or about Zern or one of our specific elementary, online things, I can help with that. Okay? But if it is about the actual device, the computer won't turn on, something's not charging, the camera's not working, the microphone's not working, the keys stopped working, you need to talk to the tech guys. And they are the ones that you find at option 3. So I'm not going to be mad if you call me. But if you call me about a broken computer, I will just tell you, call this number back, but choose option 3. So just so you know, that's why I put that there. That if you're looking for that actual tech device help, Zoom isn't working or something like that, option 3. So hopefully these are the questions that you would have. If there is something that's not on here that you feel like you really need to know the link to get to it, make a note right now, and please at the end speak up and let me know what that is so that I can add it. And these things will stay in this presentation. So one of the sites that I've mentioned, I didn't include on the last page because it's right here, is Remind. And Remind is, you can have it so that it sends messages to your phone, to your email, or just in the app. And what this is it's just a place that's a little easier for teachers to send out messages, files, schedules, to all of our parents or to individual parents. So you can communicate one-on-one with your teacher, but you can also get our updates just in one place. And if you aren't connected, here are the codes. You just go to remind.com/join or download the app. That is the easiest way to make sure that you don't miss anything from us. We are always available also by email. We have a lot of different ways of communicating. If you feel like you might be missing something, like I feel like I might be missing communication from the teacher, just check and make sure that you are connected to your teacher's Remind. Because Miss Salazar, Mr. Perez, and myself, we do things a little bit differently, right? Things are generally the same, but it's a little different. Things are also different for kindergarten than they are for 5th grade. So we do our very best to give you guys, I know Mr. Perez sends out a newsletter. I do like a schedule each week. And even if it's just something that's really basic, and even if it's already going to the students, we all know that they have selective vision and they don't always notice things. So if you get it, and then there's no excuse, and that's going to just be helpful to everybody. So Remind, I did include the link here. It's remind.com/join, put in your teacher's code, you're connected. And we're at our computers all day. So if you message us through Remind, I know if I don't hear a ding and it's like an hour's gone by and I haven't heard a ding, which is the notice from Remind, that usually tells me I accidentally closed it or it's not signed in. So we're just constantly listening for that communication. So I say that this is a really good way to get in touch with us throughout the day. Students can use Remind also, but I think that most of our students, the best way for them to communicate with us is through Gmail and Google Classroom. And then, of course, we have office times that we're in Zoom where we say, hey, if this is my office time, you can come at this time and we can chat. Parents are welcome then too. All right. So the structure. And this is the great challenge of online school is students don't have a classroom to walk into and a cafeteria to walk into and schedule on the door and bells that ring. So like I said before, we do our best to, for each grade, provide some kind of a structure, a schedule, an idea. Students are required to participate in the live or synchronous classes. And here's what that schedule looks like. I updated the schedule for 4th and 5th grade this semester to be more like the other grades. So kindergarten, they meet with Miss Salazar Monday and Wednesday at 8 a.m. and Friday at 8 a.m. So they have their weekday classes with Mrs. Salazar Monday, Wednesday at 8 a.m. And on Friday, they have a class. 1st grade meets with Mrs. Salazar on Tuesday and Thursday at 8 a.m. And then they also meet with Mrs. Salazar at 8 a.m. on Friday, because that's their mindful moose for kindergarten and 1st grade is together. It's a really cool time. The younger ones can learn from the older ones, and the 1st graders can be leaders to the kindergartners. For 2nd and for 3rd grade, for 2nd grade, Tuesday and Thursday at 8:15, they have class with Mr. Perez. And they know that. And a lot of them come early. And if correct me if I'm wrong, but Mr. Perez, they can come like at 8 and they can hang out and talk a little bit.
Correct.
Okay. And a lot of them do that.
Yep.
So 2nd grade, Tuesday, Thursday, and then they have Mindful Moose on Friday at 8:15. So for 2nd grade, it's really consistent. Tuesday, Thursday, Friday at 8:15. 3rd grade meets Monday and Wednesday at 8:15 with the opportunity to come a few minutes sooner to socialize. And then Thursday meets with Mr. Perez. Thursday.
Friday.
3rd grade meets with Mr. Perez on Fridays at 10 for their Mindful Moose. Okay. And so this is the schedule that they've had that they have already gotten accustomed to. So 4th and 5th grade, 4th grade will be meeting with me Monday and Wednesday at 8 o'clock. So instead of 4th grade every morning from 8 to 8:30, what I decided was I like what Mr. Perez and Miss Salazar are doing. I'm gonna do where I alternate so I can have more time. So 4th grade will be with me Monday and Wednesday at 8 o'clock so we can have a longer class, like 45 minutes to an hour, so that I can go over more of their math and their language arts with them. And then on Fridays, all of 4th grade will have their Mindful Moose class with me at 8 o'clock. 5th grade will have their class with me Tuesday and Thursday at 8 a.m. And then they will have Mindful Moose Friday at 10 a.m. So I'm excited to do what Mr. Perez and Miss Salazar already have been doing, because it's going to give me more time to do some more robust lessons as their work gets a little trickier in math, and some of their assignments are going to need a little bit more help. It'll be nice to have longer time twice a week in the morning. And this is going to start next week, and I'm going to go over it with the students this week and send out a new schedule. But this is what will be starting next week. So this week is this is our kickoff week, and that's why you see all of the students are meeting in the morning and then the assemblies. But starting next week and for the remainder of this semester, this is going to be their consistent schedule. So if there are days that for some reason you're like, we've got a dentist appointment, or we're driving, we're going to be out of town, and your student can't participate in their live class, just like if they were going to be late to school, let us know, communicate, tell us what's going on. That'll allow us a couple of things. One, we won't be over here messaging being like, hey, everything okay? But also we can record it, or we can send an email or a message to the student if we know that they're missing it. Because if I'm doing a math test and I'm doing it with my students and a student is not there, they're missing going over the math test. That's kind of a big deal when we only meet a couple times a week. So it's really important that you do communicate, and that as much as possible, you try to work your schedule so that your student does not have to miss those morning classes. So looking at that structure, I know it looks a little bit confusing here, but if you break it apart for just your student's grade, you can pretty easily make a schedule for them for each day of the week that is going to be basically the same every day, except that, on certain days that they make sure that they're on Zoom. The days they're not on Zoom, they're still logging their computer, they're still doing their work. And the schedules that teachers share or schedules that you create, that's really, really going to help your student be successful. There's a work tracker that I have shared, Mr. Perez, Miss Salazar, we've all shared it. We'll share it again. It's an idea. Okay. It's not perfect, but it's just a way that you can kind of have like a checklist. Did I do Buzz today? Yes. For how long? Write it down. Did I do math today? Yes. What lesson did I do? Okay. What did I learn? What questions did I have? You can honestly just take a piece of paper or a whiteboard. In fact, I got a chalkboard for Christmas, but you can just a piece of paper and you can put it in a sleeve protector, those little plastic sleeve protectors. And with a dry erase marker, then you can write on the sleeve protector and then you can erase it. Or you could just put it on the computer, put it on the wall, use stickers, something. And you could really just say, like, for each subject, ELA, math, reading and epic, make it very simple and say how much time, right? How much time did you spend? What lesson did you do? I mean, that is as simple as it has to be, just so that they have something visual where they're looking to say, every day, did I do this today? Did I do this today? Because that's what's been the hardest is they're like, well, I worked a lot on math. Well, they might not remember that was 2 days ago. They're not trying to be deceptive. They just don't have that great of a concept of time. And to be honest, neither do I. So if I don't write it down, if I don't keep track, I might confuse yesterday with today. The students who are the most successful are the ones that have structure. And that's something that you can really help them with. So when it comes to attendance, we will look at a few things before we mark them present or absent. We're looking at an idea, are they actively engaging in learning? So were they in their Zoom class? We'll look at that, right? How much time did they spend in Buzz on language arts? So when we go into Buzz as a teacher and we go into the subject language arts, which is their reading and their writing and their language, we can look at all of our students. We can see their activity. So we can see how much time they spent and where they spent it. So a lot of times if a student is questioning, well, I thought I did it, I can pull up their activity report and I can say, well, you spent 10 seconds looking at this, and then you clicked on something else for 5 seconds, and then you spent 1 minute on this, and then you spent 5 minutes on this. And the expectation for language arts is about an hour a day. So if you're spending 10 minutes and I can see that because I can see where you clicked around, you know, that's not spending at least an hour. Now, that hour isn't only in Buzz, right? Like Mr. Perez, I know he uses Epic really well, and his students have expectations of how much time they should be reading in Epic. Um, Different lessons require different amounts of time, and we're aware of that. But if I see a student spent 45 minutes in Buzz, then I know that they got on there and they did good work. If I see that they spent 0 minutes or 2 minutes, then I'm going to be, hey, you're going to get behind, right? In Zern, we also can see an activity report that tells us whether or not they were online and whether or not they completed lessons. So even if your student takes 2 days to finish a lesson in Zern, we still see that they were online. So it's okay if some lessons take longer, right? We can still see that they were online. So we're looking at those things, especially language arts and Zern math. So if you see that your child is marked absent in Power School, that's the first thing for you to check. Their Buzz Language Arts and their Zern Math. So if a student comes to our Zoom class in the morning, but if there's no activity the rest of the day, they'll still be counted as absent. And we don't usually take attendance like in the middle of the day, right? Because we do understand that people do their learning at different times. So we might be taking today's attendance tomorrow. And then at the end of the week, we always look back so that we can update it, because sometimes I can see a student did a bunch of work on Saturday that I didn't see on Thursday, and I can update that later. And as long as you're communicating with us, if you say, we've got an appointment today, we're going to be out of town, then I know I'm going to look for work probably not right during that day, but in the evening or extra work the next day. So I want you to know that we're not doing attendance just as we saw one thing, we're going to mark it one way. It really needs to be a team effort. And, it's something that we work hard to be really careful about. It's something I need to be even better about this semester. So just like if you weren't going to show up to school, you let the school know, please let us know. Just communicate. It's the biggest thing. All right. So if you have questions about attendance, go ahead and write them down or put them in the chat so that we can talk a little bit more about those later. But attendance will come from the entirety of what the students are doing, not just one thing. So schedules, timers, work trackers, we're talking about structure, having structure, helping them with setting alarms, using timers, using schedules, having a to-do list. You can see in Buzz when they log in on their dashboard, they're going to see to do, they're going to see what's coming up. And something that will be a little bit different this semester that we didn't quite have nailed down last semester is we are taking the modules in Buzz and we're putting deadlines. They can still turn things in past the deadline, but in order to get through the content that they really, really need to learn this year, we, Mr. Perez, Ms. Salazar, and myself have taken those modules and we have set due dates on the calendar. We've removed some of the assignments that are not necessary, and we've changed some to make it as useful as possible for the students. But they will see those. So if you sign into Buzz on the dashboard, I think you can even go to calendar, but you'll see to do. So you might get I got a calendar at the dollar store. I have like 5 calendars because I write things all over the place. But I got one at the dollar store. And I've been using that to write the deadlines that I'm setting so that I have it in one place. You might just help them, with that. The younger students, they probably don't need to have these deadlines all written out because It's developmentally, kindergarten and first grader doesn't need to know what's due in 2 weeks, right? That's way too far ahead. But you might want to know just so you can make sure that you're watching them do the work along the way. Fourth and fifth graders should be learning how to handle that. So use a schedule that we provide, make your own schedule, but help your student by having some kind of organization, please. Fridays are Mindful Moose. That has not changed, and it is a half day. That has not changed. But we do want to make sure we clearly communicate that the expectation is that students work on schoolwork on Fridays. This is a great time to get caught up. This is a great time for them to go back and look at maybe if they did any writing activities during the week, to take extra time on Friday to check their writing. Maybe if they wrote it on paper, they can type it up, look in Google Classroom and make sure they didn't miss anything. Go to Freckle and check their backpack in Freckle. So Fridays, they have Mindful Moose for about an hour with their teacher at their scheduled time. But the rest of the time, until about noon, they should still do some work. So Zern, in order to stay caught up in Zern math, first graders through fifth graders should be doing at least 4 lessons a week. Kindergarten is a little bit different because theirs aren't set up as lessons. So that's with kindergarten, they should be spending a certain amount of time each week. And I think Miss Salazar does a good job of communicating that. But for first through fifth graders, if they look and say, where am I in Zern? How many lessons did I do this week? That's probably a great area to get caught up on Friday. So just encourage your students to look at Fridays as this is a great opportunity. It's a special day. It's a half day. You get to enjoy Mindful Moose, which is our social and emotional learning. You get to enjoy that, but then it's also a time to just before the weekend, make sure you've done everything you need to do. So we've talked about schedules, talked a lot about schedules and structure. So student supports. Student supports, these are any of the systems that are in place to help students, because we're all individuals, to help students as individuals see their greatest potential. So read plans are for those students where we might be concerned that without intervention, they might fall further behind. And we don't want that. We want to get them caught up so that they can stay successful and be successful readers, because the research shows that as they move along in school, if they don't get interventions, then they're more likely to fall further behind. So if your student is on a read plan, you've heard from your teacher, you know about that. Or if your teacher has said, hey, they need to be in reading help class, they need to be in that class. And the state of Colorado, Colorado Department of Education has, I mean, the READ Act, we are required by law to provide these students with intervention so that they are less likely to fall further behind. So please, usually that's just like 30 minutes a day, Monday through Thursday. Make sure that they know that that is required and that we need them to participate. I might need them to have their camera on during that class, and it's smaller, so it shouldn't be too scary, but I might need to see their mouth, because in order to tell whether they're making the word sounds and the letter sounds properly, I might need to see if they're saying or, because that's different. And I can see that, and I'm looking for those things so that I can really help, because I might notice something and I might go, hey, say that again. And that's where we as teachers are able to find those little things that once the student fixes that, their whole world opens up and they're able to be so much more successful. So in order for us to help them, we need them to be in those classes. So if your teacher says, hey, I really need them to be at this class, do it. If you feel like you have a student who is really struggling and you haven't heard anything like about being in an extra reading help class, reach out to your teacher and ask them, because most likely we can say, sure, here's the link, join, we want to help. IEPs and other plans, English language learners, there's a lot of different stuff out there. And so when we say, hey, I want you to come to this group, just listen and feel free to ask questions. But if your student says, well, I don't think I'm supposed to go, just take that as a cue to check. All right. Just check, right? I don't think I'm supposed to. Just confirm with us, because it's easy to get confused. This is new. The way this works in school is students are in their classroom with their teacher, and the teacher that's doing the support from wherever else, they walk into the classroom, they get those students, and they go to another room and they do the reading intervention or they do the help, and then they bring the students back. So students aren't used to having to be the ones responsible for this. It's usually that there's a teacher support who comes and gets them. So that's why it seems a little bit different. They're used to what they're doing. They're like, oh yeah, reading class, okay. But they're not used to having to remember to do it at a certain time. Does that make sense? So that's why we're asking for your help with this. If you're like, this is weird, I don't hear much about this. Well, it's a little different. There's Linda Mood Bell groups, which is just another type of reading support. Now, the Dibbles and Benchmark, Dibbles, if you hear us say Dibbles, it's also called Acadience. It's also called Amplify. It's changed names a bunch of times. It's all the same thing. This is what we have to do per the READ Act. So we are required by Colorado state law to use this process to evaluate our students' reading progress compared to what their level would be if they were reading on grade level. So, if you ask a teacher, we'll probably be like, hey, I don't love it. I wouldn't choose it if I were me. However, it's what we have. And the really good thing about this is that because we, as their teacher, do this process them each time, we really are able to see whether they're growing or the areas that they need to work on. And so the benchmark is what we did at the beginning of the year and right before winter break, and we'll do it again in the spring. It's a lot, that one takes a little bit longer, and it's a one-on-one with the student, and they read passages or letters to us so that we can see how they're doing. The progress monitoring, this is what happens just along the way. Because we don't want to just be like, okay, well, I'll see you in a few months. We want to see how they're doing along the way. So the younger students will get communication from their teachers to schedule these times. And the parents really need to help make sure students are there for those times. The older students, fourth and fifth graders, they're responsible to figure that out with me. So I schedule that with them. So the only time you'll hear from me if you have a fourth or a fifth grader is if I am not able to communicate with the student, or if they signed up for a time and they didn't show up. Okay. So if you get a message from the teacher that says, I need them to come read with me, that's probably what this is. It only takes a few minutes. We try to do it with all of our students at least once a month, sometimes more, to make sure that they're progressing in their reading and their letter sounds and their phonics the way that they should be. So if you have questions about that, make a note of that or type that in the chat. Don't worry, we're close. We're close to being done. I know. So sorry. If we were in class, we could, stand up and do fun activities and stuff, but I'm trying to respect everyone's time and get through everything. Something that's really cool that we have an opportunity we have for the students is this social time. Miss Bev is a part-time counselor for Alamos Online School. She works a lot with the older students, working with their schedules, but she has a time each week that is optional if students would like to join, just to work on socializing. Things are different. They don't have this time at school, but they can still really learn a lot about interacting with their peers and with other adults, even though it's online. And with Miss Bev, it's different because it's not their teacher. She has some activities that I know she's talked about doing, maybe even some art stuff, some games, some, would you rather questions, and just whatever students decide to show up if they want to, every Monday from 2 to 2:30, every Tuesday from 2 to 2:30, every Wednesday from 2 to 2:30 for those different grades. So kindergarten and first grade, Mondays, second and third grade, Tuesdays, fourth and fifth grade, Wednesdays. And the students will see a post from her in Google Classroom. So the students, they did have a couple of these already, and a few of the students joined. But just so you know, if you're concerned, or if you think that your student really needs this social time, then now you're aware and hey, this is something that's happening. Maybe even if you join them for that, to work on building those communication skills. And sometimes it's just nice to know you're not alone. Before we go on to questions, I want to share this. This is what I was talking about before. When we realize these students are used to, during the school year, going to school, they have their teachers in their classrooms. Some of them have different teachers. They've got their art teacher, their music teacher. They've got the people in the office and in the cafeteria. And built in to school is all of these adults in this student's life helping the student figure out what learning is. They don't know how to do school yet when they come to school for the first time. So the level of support, if you think about kindergarten teachers, the reason that I know I couldn't be a kindergarten teacher is because I have no desire to wipe up their noses. I was a substitute. I tried it, and it's just not for me, right? It's just not. But kindergarten teachers, they're like these little angels in the lives of these children, where they are there and they do so much with the students in the classroom, not only with wiping noses, but they're teaching those students, they're teaching those children how to learn for the first time in that environment. So, surprise, you get thrown into being a kindergarten teacher now at home. Oh my goodness, well, what does this mean, right? Nobody expects you as parents to suddenly be a professional teacher. That's why we're here doing the best that we can on the school side. So I tried to make this chart because this is like what we as teachers do for students in the classroom. And this is what we need your help with the students at home. When they're young, they are totally dependent because they haven't learned how to learn yet. But they still have to know that they're responsible, right? They're still the ones responsible for their learning. So you might feel like you are actually the one that's doing kindergarten right now. And that might be accurate, but you're doing it, teaching them how to do it, and they have to have ownership in it. If they don't have ownership in it, they're going to go to first grade and they're just going to keep looking at you, expecting you to take things over for them. So while you are supporting them and assisting them, they have to understand, even at that youngest level, all the way as long as school goes, they need you to help them lay this foundation that they're responsible. Okay, so that doesn't change. But you're not going to leave a kindergarten student all on their own. They need a lot of support. They're dependent. You can't just leave them on their own and then figure out how to learn. But as they're growing, your role will change. And it has to, in order for them to succeed later on. We can't just send them to middle school and all of a sudden the floor drops out from under them and they went from having tons of support to having no support. So here's just a way to get there. If your student is in about first grade, then you should be looking at your role as supporting them, but you want them to grow less dependent. That doesn't mean they're totally on their own, but it does mean that while they're being supported by you, they can do some things on their own. And you have to figure out what those things are, right? What are the things that they can do on their own and what are the things that they need my help with? And letting them be in the driver's seat, letting them work the computer while you're helping them figure it out. It's tough, it's frustrating, but they need it. Second grade is right on this line. It's like the seesaw. They're right on this line where they're not ready to be alone yet. They're still young. They need assistance. But look at where they are. They're about to this place where they need to start having accountability for themselves. So if you are still supporting your second grader in every little thing and they don't have the confidence to do anything on their own, then you need to start changing what you're doing, because that's what we would do in the classroom as teachers, right? Getting these second graders ready for third grade. Oh, they're going to have more accountability. They need to be prepared for it. So the role of the adult changes a little bit to this role where from always being available to assist them, now you need to be always available to keep them accountable. And they might still need help. Third grade, they've got to be accountable, but you can't totally leave them on their own. By the time they're in fourth grade, they should be self-starters. Again, this does not mean they don't need any help, but they have to be able to do things on their own. They've got to be able to get fourth grade is a time where you're still keeping them accountable. They're learning to be accountable to themselves, but they have to be able to, okay, what do I need to do? If they can't think of the next thing that they could do, and they ask you and you just tell them, they're not going to learn how to move on with things by themselves. So as a teacher, we see these differences on a daily basis, and so do the other adults in the building, and so students get this from all over, and so this is shifting to you now. And fifth grade is right before they go to middle school. Well, how can we prepare them for the expectations of middle school? Well, the adult is still there, right? They still have somebody, but they really need to have an independence. And they should be learning how to be accountable to themselves. So if you help them with a chart of some kind, at any point, they should be ready to explain what they've been doing. How's your day going? Let's see. Today, okay, so I spent an hour working on math and it was this lesson. And let's see, I guess I need to do language arts next, right? That is them being able to be responsible for their own accountability, but your role is still super important because you have to make sure that they're able to do that. When they go off to middle school, to high school, whether or not they've learned these skills, this is really how they're going to succeed. And so this is where your role as a parent is so important, and you know that already. But as a teacher, when we were talking, we're like, man, we're just so used to these things being built into the classroom. What a shift this is, that now we're sharing these responsibilities, and in a lot of ways, there's been a disconnect, and we want to make sure that we connect it. We're on the same team. We want the same things for the students. So if we have this same understanding, all right, they need our support, but they all have to learn what it means to be accountable. So the family school contract was emailed out, but it's also in Power School. If you haven't signed a Power School to take a look at it, please do. And do that with your student, even the young ones. Read them the student part, and it needs to be signed, which is just checking a box in Power School. But if you have any questions, especially about the commitment from our school, because this is also just as important. We, by sharing this, are committing that we are going to explain this process and the expectations, that we will be available when we have scheduled hours, that assessments are available, right? We are doing all the same requirements from the state for the students as the other schools. So your child's not going to go to any other school and they're going to be like, wow, what happened? They're behind on all this, right? We're providing all those same things. We're providing the student supports. Students are able to participate in activities with the rest of the school district, and parents are invited to these accountability committee meetings. There are certain expectations for students. And this is the same stuff that we've gone over and we'll go over with them and then for parents. And a lot of it is just we are asking you to encourage your child to be familiar with what they're doing, understand that their grades are going to reflect whether or not they participated in the work. And so any questions you have, it's really important to ask. If you already signed this in the fall, good question. No, you do not need to sign it again if you already signed it in the fall. And so as if you already signed it or checked the box in Power School, emailed it in, you don't have to do that again, no. So the biggest thing is thank you. Without you, your student would not succeed. Um, they need to have adults in their life for this process. So you might not realize just how much of an impact you're having, but it's the development of these students as they are growing in these younger grades. There's so much that just happens as they're developing, as they're growing. And if they didn't have adults in their life around them, I mean, hard to even think about what that might look like. So thank you.